The Epic of Gilgamesh, N.K. Sanders. Prologue. Gilgamesh, King in Uruk. I will proclaim to the world the deeds of Gilgamesh. This was the man to whom all things were known. This was the king who knew the countries of the world. He was wise, he saw mysteries and knew secret things. He brought us a tale of the days before the flood. He went on a long journey, was weary and worn out with labor. Returning, he rested and engraved on a stone the whole story. When the gods created Gilgamesh, they gave him a perfect body. Shamash, the glorious sun, endowed him with beauty. Adad, the god of the storm, endowed him with courage. The great gods made his beauty perfect, surpassing all others, terrifying like a great wild bull. 2/3 they made him god, and 1/3 man. In Uruk, he built walls, a great rampart, and the temple of blessed Ina for the god of the firmament, Anu, and for Ishtar, the goddess of love. Look at it still today. The outer wall, where the cornice runs, shines with a brilliance of copper, and the inner wall has no equal. Touch the threshold, it is ancient. Approach Ina, the dwelling of Ishtar, our lady of love and war, the like of which no latter-day king, no man alive can equal. Climb upon the wall of Uruk. Walk along it, I say. Regard the foundation terrace and examine the masonry. Is it not burnt brick and good? The 7 sages laid the foundations. The coming of Enkidu. Gilgamesh went abroad in the world, but he met with none who could withstand his arms until he came to Uruk. However, the men of Uruk muttered in their houses, saying, Gilgamesh sounds the tocsin for his amusement. His arrogance has no bounds by day or night. No son is left with his father, for Gilgamesh takes them all, even the children. Yet the king should be a shepherd to his people. His lust leaves no virgin to her lover, neither the warrior's daughter nor the wife of the noble. Yet this is the shepherd of the city, wise, comely, and resolute. The gods heard their lament, and the gods of heaven cried to the Lord of Uruk, to Anu, the god of Uruk. A goddess made him, strong as a savage bull. None can withstand his arms. No son is left with his father, for Gilgamesh takes them all. Is this the king, the shepherd of his people? His lust leaves no virgin to her lover, neither the warrior's daughter nor the wife of the noble. When Anu had heard their lamentation, the gods cried to Araru, the goddess of creation. You made him, O Araru. Now create his equal. Let it be as like him as his own reflection, his second self-stormy heart for stormy heart. Let them contend together and leave Uruk in quiet. So the goddess conceived an image in her mind, and it was of the stuff of Anu of the firmament. She dipped her hands in water and pinched off clay, letting it fall in the wilderness, and noble Enkidu was created. In him was the virtue of the god of war, Ninurta himself. His body was rough. He had long hair like a woman's, waving like the hair of Nisaba, the goddess of corn. His body was covered with matted hair like Samigan, the god of cattle. He was innocent of mankind. He knew nothing of cultivated land. Enkidu ate grass in the hills with the gazelle and lurked with wild beasts at the water holes. He had joy of the water with the herds of wild game. But one day, a trapper met him face to face at the drinking hole, for the wild game had entered the trapper's territory. For 3 days, they met face to face, and the trapper was frozen with fear. He returned to his house with the game he had caught, but he was dumb, benumbed with terror. His face was altered, like that of one who has made a long journey. With awe in his heart, he spoke to his father. Father, there is a man unlike any other who comes down from the hills. He is the strongest in the world. He is like an immortal from heaven. He ranges over the hills with wild beasts and eats grass. He ranges through your land and comes down to the wells. I am afraid and dare not go near him. He fills in the pits I dig and tears up my traps set for the game. He helps the beasts to escape, and now they slip through my fingers. His father opened his mouth and said to the trapper, My son, in Uruk lives Gilgamesh. No one has ever prevailed against him. He is strong as a star from heaven. Go to Uruk, find Gilgamesh, and extol the strength of this wild man. Ask him to give you a harlot, a wanton from the temple of love. Return with her, and let her woman's power overpower this man. When next he comes down to drink at the wells, she will be there, stripped naked. When he sees her beckoning, he will embrace her, and then the wild beasts will reject him. The trapper set out on his journey to Uruk and addressed himself to Gilgamesh, saying, "A man unlike any other is roaming now in the pastures. He is as strong as a star from heaven, and I am afraid to approach him. He helps the wild game to escape. He fills in my pits and pulls up my traps." Gilgamesh said, "Trapper, go back and take with you a harlot, a child of pleasure. At the drinking hole, she will strip, and when he sees her beckoning, he will embrace her. The game of the wilderness will surely reject him." The trapper returned, taking the harlot with him. After a 3-day journey, they came to the drinking hole and sat down. The harlot and the trapper sat facing one another and waited for the game to come. For the first and second day, the two sat waiting. On the third day, the herds came down to drink, and Enkidu was with them. The small wild creatures of the plains were glad of the water, and Enkidu, who ate grass with the gazelle and was born in the hills, came with them. The trapper spoke to her. "There he is. Now, woman, make your breasts bare. Have no shame, do not delay, but welcome his love. Let him see you naked. Let him possess your body. When he comes near, uncover yourself and lie with him. Teach him, the savage man, your woman's art. When he murmurs love to you, the wild beast that shared his life in the hills will reject him." She was not ashamed to take him. She made herself naked and welcomed his eagerness. As he lay on her murmuring love, she taught him the woman's art. For 6 days and 7 nights, they lay together, and Enkidu forgot his home in the hills. But when he was satisfied, he returned to the wild beasts. Then, when the gazelle saw him, they bolted away. When the wild creatures saw him, they fled. Enkidu would have followed, but his body was bound as though with a cord. His knees gave way when he started to run. His swiftness was gone. The wild creatures had fled. Enkidu was weak, for wisdom was in him, and the thoughts of a man were in his heart. He returned and sat at the woman's feet, listening intently to what she said. "You are wise, Enkidu, and now you have become like a god. Why do you want to run wild with the beasts in the hills? Come with me. I will take you to strong-walled Uruk, to the blessed temple of Ishtar and Anu, of love and of heaven. There Gilgamesh lives, who is very strong, and like a wild bull, he lords it over men." When she had spoken, Enkidu was pleased. He longed for a comrade, one who would understand his heart. "Come, woman, take me to that holy temple, to the house of Anu and of Ishtar, and to the place where Gilgamesh lords it over the people. I will challenge him boldly. I will cry aloud in Uruk, I am the strongest here. I have come to change the old order. I am he who was born in the hills. I am he who is strongest of all." She said, "Let us go, and let him see your face. I know where Gilgamesh is in great Uruk. Oh, Enkidu, there all the people are dressed in their gorgeous robes. Every day is a holiday. The young men and the girls are wonderful to see. How sweet they smell. All the great ones are roused from their beds. Oh, Enkidu, you who love life, I will show you Gilgamesh, a man of many moods. You shall look at him well in his radiant manhood. His body is perfect in strength and maturity. He never rests by night or day. He is stronger than you, so leave your boasting. Shamash, the glorious sun, has given favors to Gilgamesh. Anu of the heavens and Lil and E the wise have given him deep understanding. Even before you have left the wilderness, Gilgamesh will know in his dreams that you are coming. The Epic of Gilgamesh. Now Gilgamesh got up to tell his dream. Now Gilgamesh got up to tell his dream to his mother, Ninsun, one of the wise gods. Mother, last night I had a dream. I was full of joy. The young heroes were around me, and I walked through the night under the stars of the firmament. One, a meteor of the stuff of Anu fell down from heaven. I tried to lift it, but it proved too heavy. All the people of Europe came around to see it. The common people jostled, and the nobles thronged to kiss its feet. To me, its attraction was like the love of a woman. They helped me. I braced my forehead, raised it with thongs, and brought it to you. You yourself pronounced it, my brother. Then Ninsun, who is well beloved and wise, said to Gilgamesh, this star of heaven, which descended like a meteor from the sky, and which you tried to lift, but found too heavy when you tried to move it, it would not budge, and so you brought it to my feet. I made it for you, a goad and spur, and you were drawn as though to a woman. This is the strong comrade, the one who brings help to his friend in need. He is the strongest of wild creatures, the stuff of Anu. Born in the grasslands, the wild hills reared him. When you see him, you will be glad. You will love him as a woman, and he will never forsake you. This is the meaning of the dream. Gilgamesh said, Mother, I dreamed a second dream. In the streets of strong-walled Uruk, there lay an axe. The shape of it was strange, and the people thronged around. I saw it and was glad. I bent down, deeply drawn toward it. I loved it like a woman and wore it at my side. Ninsun answered, that axe which you saw, which drew you so powerfully like the love of a woman, is the comrade whom I give you. He will come in his strength like one of the hosts of heaven. He is the brave companion who rescues his friend in necessity. Gilgamesh said to his mother, a friend, a counselor, has come to me from Enlil, and now I shall befriend and counsel him. So Gilgamesh told his dreams, and the harlot retold them to Enkidu. The transformation of Enkidu. And now the harlot said to Enkidu, when I look at you, you have become like a god. Why do you yearn to run wild again with the beasts in the hills? Get up from the ground, the bed of a shepherd. He listened to her words with care. It was good advice she gave. She divided her clothing in two. With one half, she clothed him, and with the other herself. Holding his hand, she led him like a child to the sheepfolds and to the shepherds' tents. There, all the shepherds crowded around to see him. They put bread in front of him, but Enkidu could only suck the milk of wild animals. He fumbled and gaped, at a loss as to what to do or how to eat the bread and drink the strong wine. Then the woman said, Enkidu, eat bread, it is the staff of life. Drink the wine, it is the custom of the land. So he ate until he was full and drank strong wine, 7 goblets. He became merry, his heart exulted, and his face shone. He rubbed down the matted hair of his body and anointed himself with oil. Enkidu had become a man. When he put on man's clothing, he appeared like a bridegroom. He took up arms to hunt the lion so that the shepherds could rest at night. He caught wolves and lions, and the herdsmen lay down in peace. Enkidu was their watchman, a strong man with no rival. He lived merrily with the shepherds until one day, lifting his eyes, he saw a man approaching. He said to the harlot, Woman, fetch that man here. Why has he come? I wish to know his name. She went and called the man, saying, Sir, where are you going on this weary journey? The man answered, saying to Enkidu, Gilgamesh has gone into the marriage house and shut out the people. He does strange things in Uruk, the city of great streets. At the roll of the drum, work begins for the men and work for the women. Gilgamesh, the king, is about to celebrate marriage with the queen of love, and he still demands to be first with the bride. The king is to be first, and the husband to follow, for that was ordained by the gods from his birth. from the time the umbilical cord was cut. But now the drums roll for the choice of the bride, and the city groans. At these words, Enkidu turned white in the face. I will go to the place where Gilgamesh lords it over the people. I will challenge him boldly, and I will cry aloud in Uruk. I have come to change the old order, for I am the strongest here. Now Enkidu strode in front, and the woman followed behind. He entered Uruk, that great market, and all the folk thronged around him as he stood in the street in strong-walled Uruk. The people jostled. Speaking of him, they said, "He is the spit of Gilgamesh. He is shorter. He is bigger of bone. This is the one who was reared on the milk of wild beasts. His is the greatest strength." The men rejoiced. Now Gilgamesh has met his match. This great one, this hero whose beauty is like a god. He is a match even for Gilgamesh. The confrontation. In Uruk, the bridal bed was made, fit for the goddess of love. The bride waited for the bridegroom. But in the night, Gilgamesh got up and came to the house. Then Enkidu stepped out, stood in the street, and blocked the way. Mighty Gilgamesh came on, and Enkidu met him at the gate. He put out his foot and prevented Gilgamesh from entering the house. They grappled, holding each other like bulls. They broke the doorposts, and the walls shook. They snorted like bulls locked together. They shattered the doorposts, and the walls shook. Gilgamesh bent his knee with his foot planted on the ground, and with a turn, Enkidu was thrown. Then immediately his fury died. When Enkidu was thrown, he said to Gilgamesh, "There is not another like you in the world." Ninsun, who is as strong as a wild ox in the byre, she was the mother who bore you. Now you are raised above all men, and Enlil has given you the kingship, for your strength surpasses the strength of men. So Enkidu and Gilgamesh embraced, and their friendship was sealed. The forest journey. Enlil of the mountain, the father of the gods, had decreed the destiny of Gilgamesh. So Gilgamesh dreamed, and Enkidu said, "The meaning of the dream is this: the father of the gods has given you kingship, such is your destiny. Everlasting life is not your destiny. Because of this, do not be sad at heart, do not be grieved or oppressed. He has given you power to bind and to loose, to be the darkness and the light of mankind. He has given you unparalleled supremacy over the people, victory in battle from which no fugitive returns, in forays and assaults from which there is no going back. But do not abuse this power. Deal justly with your servants in the palace. Deal justly before Shamash." The eyes of Enkidu were full of tears, and his heart was sick. He sighed bitterly, and Gilgamesh met his eye and said, "My friend, why do you sigh so bitterly?" But Enkidu opened his mouth and said, "I am weak. My arms have lost their strength. The cry of sorrow sticks in my throat. I am oppressed by idleness." It was then that Lord Gilgamesh turned his thoughts to the country of the living. On the land of cedars, the Lord Gilgamesh reflected. He said to his servant Enkidu, "I have not established my name stamped on bricks as my destiny decreed. Therefore, I will go to the country where the cedar is felled. I will set up my name in the place where the names of famous men are written, and where no man's name is written yet. I will raise a monument to the gods. Because of the evil that is in the land, we will go to the forest and destroy the evil. For in the forest lives Humbaba, whose name is Hugeness, a ferocious giant." But Enkidu sighed bitterly and said, "When I went with the wild beasts ranging through the wilderness, I discovered the forest. Its length is 10,000 leagues in every direction. Enlil has appointed Humbaba to guard it and armed him with sevenfold terrors. Terrible to all flesh is Humbaba. When he roars, it is like the torrent of the storm. His breath is like fire, and his jaws are death itself. He guards the cedars so well that when the wild heifer stirs in the forest, though she is 60 leagues distant, he hears her. What man would willingly walk into that country and explore its depths. I tell you, weakness overpowers whoever goes near it. It is not an equal struggle when one fights with Humbaba. He is a great warrior, a battering ram. Gilgamesh, the watchman of the forest, never sleeps. Gilgamesh replied, "Where is the man who can clamber to heaven? Only the gods lie forever with glorious Shamash. But as for us men, our days are numbered. Our occupations are a breath of wind. How is this already you are afraid? I will go first, although I am your Lord, and you may safely call out, forward, there is nothing to fear. Then if I fall, I leave behind me a name that endures. Men will say of me, Gilgamesh has fallen in fight with ferocious Humbaba. Long after the child has been born in my house, they will say it and remember." Enkidu spoke again to Gilgamesh. "O my lord, if you will enter that country, go first to the hero Shamash. Tell the sun god, for the land is his. The country where the cedar is cut belongs to Shamash." Gilgamesh took up a kid, white without spot, and a brown one with it. He held them against his breast and carried them into the presence of the sun. He took in his hand his silver scepter and said to glorious Shamash, "I am going to that country, O Shamash. I am going. My hands supplicate, so let it be well with my soul and bring me back to the key of Uruk. Grant, I beseech, your protection, and let the omen be good." Glorious Shamash answered, "Gilgamesh, you are strong, but what is the country of the living to you? O Shamash, hear me, Shamash, let my voice be heard. Here in the city, man dies oppressed at heart. Man perishes with despair in his heart. I have looked over the wall, and I see the bodies floating on the river, and that will be my lot also. Indeed, I know it is so, for whoever is tallest among men cannot reach the heavens, and the greatest cannot encompass the earth. Therefore, I would enter that country, because I have not established my name stamped on brick as my destiny decreed. I will go to the country where the cedar is cut. I will set up my name where the names of famous men are written, and where no man's name is written. I will raise a monument to the gods." The tears ran down his face, and he said, "Alas, it is a long journey that I must take to the land of Humbaba. If this enterprise is not to be accomplished, why did you move me, Shamash, with the restless desire to perform it? How can I succeed if you will not succor me? If I die in that country, I will die without rancor, but if I return, I will make a glorious offering of gifts and praise to Shamash." So Shamash accepted the sacrifice of his tears. Like a compassionate man, he showed him mercy. He appointed strong allies for Gilgamesh, sons of one mother, and stationed them in the mountain caves. The great winds he appointed, the north wind, the whirlwind, the stone and the icy wind, the tempest and the scorching wind. Like vipers, like dragons, like a scorching fire, like a serpent that freezes the heart, a destroying flood, and the lightning's fork. Such were they, and Gilgamesh rejoiced. He went to the forge and said, "I will give orders to the armorers. They shall cast us our weapons while we watch them." So they gave orders to the armorers, and the craftsmen sat down in conference. They went into the groves of the plain and cut willow and boxwood. They cast for them axes of 90 pounds, and great swords with blades of 60 pounds each, with pommels and hilts of 30 pounds. They cast for Gilgamesh the axe might of heroes and the bow of Anshan. Gilgamesh and Enkidu were armed, and the weight of the arms they carried was 30 pounds. The people collected, and the counselors gathered in the streets and the marketplace of Uruk. They came through the gate of 7 bolts, and Gilgamesh spoke to them in the marketplace. "I, Gilgamesh, go to see that creature of whom such things are spoken, the rumor of whose name fills the world. I will conquer him in his cedar wood and show the strength of the sons of Uruk. All the world shall know of it. I am committed to this enterprise, to climb the mountain, to cut down the cedar, and leave behind me an enduring name. The counselors of Uruk answered him, Gilgamesh, you are young. Your courage carries you too far. You cannot know what this enterprise means. We have heard that Humbaba is not like men who die. His weapons are such that none can stand against them. The forest stretches for 10,000 leagues in every direction. Who would willingly go down to explore its depths? As for Humbaba, when he roars, it is like the torrent of the storm. His breath is like fire, and his jaws are death itself. Why do you crave to do this thing, Gilgamesh? It is no equal struggle when one fights with Humbaba, that battering ram. When he heard these words of the counselors, Gilgamesh looked at his friend and laughed. How shall I answer them? Shall I say I am afraid of Humbaba? I will sit at home all the rest of my days. Then Gilgamesh opened his mouth again and said to Enkidu, My friend, let us go to the great palace, to Ethoma, and stand before Ninsun the queen. Ninsun is wise with deep knowledge. She will give us counsel for the road we must go. They took each other by the hand as they went to Egoma and Ninsun the great queen. Gilgamesh approached, entered the palace, and spoke to Ninsun. Ninsun, will you listen to me? I have a long journey to go, to the land of Humbaba. I must travel an unknown road and fight a strange battle. From the day I go until I return, till I reach the cedar forest and destroy the evil which Shamash abhors, pray for me to Shamash. Ninsun went into her room. She put on a dress becoming to her body, jewels to adorn her breast, and a tiara on her head. Her skirts swept the ground. She went up to the altar of the sun, standing on the roof of the palace. She burned incense and lifted her arms to Shamash as the smoke ascended. O Shamash, why did you give this restless heart to Gilgamesh, my son? Why did you give it? You have moved him, and now he sets out on a long journey to the land of Humbaba, to travel an unknown road and fight a strange battle. Therefore, from the day that he goes till the day he returns, until he reaches the cedar forest, until he kills Humbaba and destroys the evil thing which you, Shamash, abhor, do not forget him. Let Aya, your dear bride, remind you always, and when day is done, give him to the watchman of the night to keep him from harm. Then Ninsun, the mother of Gilgamesh, extinguished the incense and called to Enkidu with this exhortation. Strong Enkidu, you are not the child of my body, but I will receive you as my adopted son. You are my other child, like the foundlings they bring to the temple. Serve Gilgamesh as a foundling serves the temple and the priestess who reared him. In the presence of my women, votaries, and hierophants, I declare it. Then she placed an amulet for a pledge around his neck and said to him, I entrust my son to you. Bring him back to me safely. The Epic of Gilgamesh, the forest journey. And now they brought to them the weapons. They put in their hands the great swords in their golden scabbards, the bow and the quiver. Gilgamesh took the axe, slung the quiver from his shoulder, took up the bow of Anshan, and buckled the sword to his belt. Thus armed, they were ready for the journey. Now all the people came and pressed around them, saying, When will you return to the city? The counselors blessed Gilgamesh and warned him, Do not trust too much in your own strength. Be watchful. Restrain your blows at first. The one who goes in front protects his companion. The good guide who knows the way guards his friend. Let Enkidu lead the way, for he knows the road to the forest. He has seen Humbaba and is experienced in battles. Let him press first into the passes. Let him be watchful and look to himself. Let Enkidu protect his friend and guard his companion, bringing him safely through the pitfalls of the road. We, the counselors of Uruk, entrust our king to you, O Enkidu. Bring him back safely to us. To Gilgamesh, they said, May Shamash give you your heart's desire. May he let you see with your eyes the thing accomplished that your lips have spoken. May he open a path for you where it is blocked, and a road for your feet to tread. May he open the mountains for your crossing, and may the nighttime bring you blessings. May Lugubanda, your guardian god, stand beside you for victory. May you have victory in battle as though you fought with a child. Wash your feet in the river of Humbaba to which you are journeying. In the evening, dig a well, and let there always be pure water in your water skin. Offer cold water to Shamash, and do not forget Lugubanda. Then Enkidu opened his mouth and said, Forward, there is nothing to fear. Follow me, for I know the place where Humbaba lives and the paths where he walks. Let the counselors go back. Here is no cause for fear. When the counselors heard this, they sped the hero on his way. Go, Gilgamesh, may your guardian god protect you on the road and bring you safely back to the key of Uruk. After 20 leagues, they broke their fast. After another 30 leagues, they stopped for the night. 50 leagues they walked in one day. In 3 days, they had walked as much as a journey of a month and 2 weeks. They crossed 7 mountains before they came to the gate of the forest. Then Enkidu called out to Gilgamesh, Do not go down into the forest. When I opened the gate, my hand lost its strength. Gilgamesh answered him, Dear friend, do not speak like a coward. Have we bested so many dangers and traveled so far only to turn back at last? You who are tried in wars and battles, hold close to me now, and you will feel no fear of death. Keep beside me, and your weakness will pass. The trembling will leave your hand. Would my friend rather stay behind? No, we will go down together into the heart of the forest. Let your courage be roused by the battle to come. Forget death and follow me, a man resolute in action, but not foolhardy. When two go together, each will protect himself and shield his companion. And if they fall, they leave an enduring name. Together they went down into the forest and came to the green mountain. They stood still, struck dumb, and gazed at the forest. They saw the height of the cedars, the way into the forest, and the track where Humbaba walked. The way was broad, and the going was good. They gazed at the mountain of cedars, the dwelling place of the gods and the throne of Ishtar. The hugeness of the cedar rose in front of the mountain, its shade beautiful and full of comfort. The mountain and glade were green with brushwood. There Gilgamesh dug a well before the setting sun. He went up the mountain and poured out fine meal on the ground, saying, O mountain, dwelling of the gods, bring me a favorable dream. Then they took each other by the hand and lay down to sleep, and sleep that flows from the night lapped over them. Gilgamesh dreamed, and at midnight sleep left him. He told his dream to his friend. Enkidu, what was it that woke me, if you did not? My friend, I have dreamed a dream. Get up, look at the mountain precipice. The sleep that the gods sent me is broken. Ah, my friend, what a dream I have had. Terror and confusion, I seized hold of a wild bull in the wilderness. It bellowed and beat up the dust until the whole sky was dark. My arm was seized and my tongue bitten. I fell back on my knee. Then someone refreshed me with water from his water skin. Enkidu said, Dear friend, the god to whom we are traveling is no wild bull, though his form is mysterious. That wild bull which you saw is Shamash the protector. In our moment of peril, he will take our hands. The one who gave water from his water skin is your own God who cares for your good name, your Lugubanda. United with him, together we will accomplish a work the fame of which will never die. Gilgamesh said, I dreamed again. We stood in a deep gorge of the mountain, and beside it, we too were like the smallest of swamp flies. Suddenly the mountain fell, striking me and catching my feet from under me. Then came an intolerable light blazing out, and in it was one whose grace and beauty were greater than anything in this world. He pulled me out from under the mountain, gave me water to drink, and my heart was comforted. He set my feet on the ground. Enkidu, the child of the plains, said, Let us go down from the mountain and talk this thing over together. He said to Gilgamesh, Your dream is good. Your dream is excellent. The mountain which you saw is Humbaba. Now surely we will seize and kill him and throw his body down as the mountain fell on the plain. The next day, after 20 leagues, they broke their fast, and after another 30, they stopped for the night. They dug a well before the sun had set, and Gilgamesh ascended the mountain. He poured out fine meal on the ground, saying, O mountain, dwelling of the gods, send a dream for Enkidu. Make it a favorable dream. The mountain fashioned a dream for Enkidu. It came an ominous dream. A cold shower passed over him, causing him to cower like mountain barley under a storm of rain. But Gilgamesh sat with his chin on his knees until the sleep that flows over all mankind lapped over him. At midnight, sleep left him. He got up and said to his friend, Did you call me, or why did I wake? Did you touch me, or why am I terrified? Did not some god pass by? For my limbs are numb with fear. My friend, I saw a third dream, and this dream was altogether frightful. The heavens roared, and the earth roared again. Daylight failed, and darkness fell. Lightnings flashed, fire blazed out. The clouds lowered, raining down death. Then the brightness departed, the fire went out, and all was turned to ashes fallen about us. Let us go down from the mountain and talk this over, and consider what we should do. When they had come down from the mountain, Gilgamesh seized the axe in his hand and felled a cedar. When Humbaba heard the noise from afar, he was enraged. He cried out, Who is this that has violated my woods and cut down my cedar? Glorious Shamash called to them out of heaven, Go forward, do not be afraid. But Gilgamesh was overcome by weakness, for sleep had seized him suddenly. A profound sleep held him. He lay on the ground, stretched out, speechless, as though in a dream. Enkidu touched him, but he did not rise. When he spoke to him, he did not reply. O Gilgamesh, lord of the plain of Kulab, the world grows dark. The shadows have spread over it. Now is the glimmer of dusk. Shamash has departed. His bright head is quenched in the bosom of his mother, Ningal. O Gilgamesh, how long will you lie like this asleep? Never let the mother who gave you birth be forced into mourning in the city square. At length, Gilgamesh heard him. He put on his breastplate, the voice of heroes, of 30 shekels weight. He put it on as though it were a light garment, and it covered him altogether. He straddled the earth like a bull that snuffs the ground, and his teeth were clenched. By the life of my mother, Ninsun, who gave me birth, and by the life of my father, divine Lugubanda, let me live to be the wonder of my mother, as when she nursed me on her lap. He said again, By the life of Ninsun, my mother who gave me birth, and by the life of my father, divine Lugubanda, until we have fought this man. If man he is, this God. If God he is, I will not turn back to the city. Then Enkidu, the faithful companion, pleaded, O my lord, you do not know this monster, and that is the reason you are not afraid. I, who know him, am terrified. His teeth are dragon's fangs. His countenance is like a lion. His charge is the rushing of the flood. With his look, he crushes the trees of the forest and the reeds in the swamp. O my lord, you may go on if you choose into this land, but I will go back to the city. I will tell the lady your mother of all your glorious deeds till she shouts for joy, and then I will tell of the death that followed, till she weeps for bitterness. But Gilgamesh said, Immolation and sacrifice are not yet for me. The boat of the dead shall not go down, nor the 3-ply cloth be cut for my shrouding. Not yet will my people be desolate, nor the pyre be lit in my house, and my dwelling burnt on the fire. Today, give me your aid, and you shall have mine. What then can go amiss with us too? All living creatures born of flesh shall sit at last in the boat of the west, and when it sinks, when the boat of Magellum sinks, they are gone. But we shall go forward and fix our eyes on this monster. If your heart is fearful, throw away fear. If there is terror in it, throw away terror. Take your axe in your hand and attack. He who leaves the fight unfinished is not at peace. Humbaba came out from his strong house of cedar. Then Enkidu called out, O Gilgamesh, remember now your boasts in Uruk. Forward. Attack, son of Uruk. There is nothing to fear. When he heard these words, his courage rallied. He answered, Make haste. Close in. If the watchman is there, do not let him escape to the woods, where he will vanish. He has put on the first of his 7 splendors, but not yet the other 6. Let us trap him before he is armed. Like a raging wild bull, he snuffed the ground. The watchman of the woods turned, full of threats, and cried out. Humbaba came from his strong house of cedar. He nodded his head and shook it, menacing Gilgamesh. On him, he fastened his eye, the eye of death. Then Gilgamesh called to Shamash, and his tears were flowing. O glorious Shamash, I have followed the road you commanded. But now, if you send no succor, how shall I escape? Glorious Shamash heard his prayer and summoned the great wind, the north wind, the whirlwind, the storm and the icy wind, the tempest and the scorching wind. They came like dragons, like a scorching fire, like a serpent that freezes the heart, a destroying flood, and the lightning's fork. The 8 winds rose up against Humbaba. They beat against his eyes. He was gripped, unable to go forward or back. Gilgamesh shouted, By the life of Ninsun, my mother, and divine Lugubanda, my father, in the country of the living, in this land, I have discovered your dwelling. My weak arms and small weapons I have brought to this land against you, and now I will enter your house. The death of Humbaba. So he felled the first cedar, and they cut the branches and laid them at the foot of the mountain. At the first stroke, Humbaba blazed out, but still they advanced. They felled 7 cedars, cut and bound the branches, and laid them at the foot of the mountain. 7 times Humbaba loosed his glory upon them. As the 7th blaze died out, they reached his lair. Humbaba slapped his thigh in scorn. He approached like a noble wild bull roped on the mountain, a warrior whose elbows were bound together. Tears started to his eyes, and he was pale. Gilgamesh, let me speak. I have never known a mother, nor a father who reared me. I was born of the mountain. It reared me, and Enlil made me the keeper of this forest. Let me go free, Gilgamesh, and I will be your servant. You shall be my lord. All the trees of the forest that I tended on the mountain shall be yours. I will cut them down and build you a palace. He took Gilgamesh by the hand and led him to his house, so that the heart of Gilgamesh was moved with compassion. Gilgamesh swore by the heavenly life, by the earthly life, by the underworld itself. O Enkidu, should not the snared bird return to its nest, and the captive man return to his mother's arms? Enkidu answered, The strongest of men will fall to fate if he has no judgment. Namtur, the evil fate that knows no distinction between men, will devour him. If the snared bird returns to its nest, if the captive man returns to his mother's arms, then you, my friend, will never return to the city where the mother is waiting who gave you birth. He will bar the mountain road against you and make the pathways impassable. Humbaba said, Enkidu, what you have spoken is evil. You, a hireling, dependent for your bread. In envy and fear of a rival, you have spoken evil words. Enkidu said, Do not listen, Gilgamesh. This Humbaba must die. Kill Humbaba first and his servants after. But Gilgamesh said, If we touch him, the blaze and the glory of light will be put out in confusion. The glory and glamour will vanish, its rays will be quenched. Enkidu replied, Not so, my friend. First entrap the bird, and where shall the chicks run then? Afterwards, we can search out the glory and the glamour when the chicks run distracted through the grass. Gilgamesh listened to the word of his companion. He took the axe in his hand, drew the sword from his belt, and struck Humbaba with a thrust of the sword to the neck. Enkidu, his comrade, struck the second blow. At the third blow, Humbaba fell. Then confusion followed, for this was the guardian of the forest whom they had felled to the ground. For as far as 2 leagues, the cedars shivered when Enkidu felled the watcher of the forest, he at whose voice Hermon and Lebanon used to tremble. The mountains were moved, and all the hills, for the guardian of the forest was killed. They attacked the cedars, extinguishing the 7 splendors of Humbaba. They pressed on into the forest, bearing the sword of 8 talents. They uncovered the sacred dwellings of the Anunnaki. While Gilgamesh felled the first of the trees of the forest, Enkidu cleared their roots as far as the banks of the Euphrates. They set Humbaba before the gods, before Enlil. They kissed the ground, dropped the shroud, and placed Humbaba's head before him. When Enlil saw the head of Humbaba, he raged at them. Why did you do this thing? From henceforth, may fire be on your faces. May it eat the bread that you eat. May it drink where you drink. Then Enlil took again the blaze and the 7 splendors that had been Humbaba's. He gave the first to the river, and others to the lion, the stone of execration, the mountain, and the dreaded daughter of the queen of hell. O Gilgamesh, king and conqueror of the dreadful blaze, wild bull who plunders the mountain, who crosses the sea, glory to him. Yet from the brave, the greater glory is Enki's, Ishtar and Gilgamesh, and the death of Enkidu. Gilgamesh washed out his long locks and cleaned his weapons. He flung back his hair from his shoulders, threw off his stained clothes, and changed them for new. He put on his royal robes and made them fast. When Gilgamesh had put on the crown, glorious Ishtar lifted her eyes and, seeing the beauty of Gilgamesh, said, "Come to me, Gilgamesh, and be my bridegroom. Grant me seed of your body, let me be your bride, and you shall be my husband. I will harness for you a chariot of lapis lazuli and gold, with wheels of gold and horns of copper. You shall have mighty demons of the storm for draft mules. When you enter our house in the fragrance of cedarwood, threshold and throne will kiss your feet. Kings, rulers, and princes will bow down before you. They shall bring you tribute from the mountains and the plain. Your ewes shall drop twins, and your goats triplets. Your pack ass shall outrun mules, your oxen shall have no rivals, and your chariot horses shall be famous far off for their swiftness." Gilgamesh opened his mouth and answered glorious Ishtar, "If I take you in marriage, what gifts can I give in return? What ointments and clothing for your body? I would gladly give you bread and all sorts of food fit for a god. I would give you wine to drink fit for a queen. I would pour out barley to fill your granary, but as for making you my wife, that I will not. How would it go with me? Your lovers have found you like a brazier that smolders in the cold, a back door that keeps out neither squall of wind nor storm, a castle that crushes the garrison, pitch that blackens the bearer, a water skin that chafes the carrier, a stone that falls from the parapet, a battering ram turned back from the enemy, a sandal that trips the wearer. Which of your lovers did you ever love forever? What shepherd of yours has pleased you for all time? Listen to me while I tell the tale of your lovers. There was Tammuz, the lover of your youth. For him, you decreed wailing year after year. You loved the many-colored roller, but still you struck and broke his wing. Now in the grove, he sits and cries, "Cappy, Cappy, my wing, my wing." You have loved the lion, tremendous in strength. 7 pits you dug for him, and 7. You have loved the stallion, magnificent in battle, and for him you decreed whip and spur and a thong, to gallop 7 leagues by force, and to muddy the water before he drinks. And for his mother, Silily, lamentations, you have loved the shepherd of the flock. He made meal cakes for you day after day. He killed kids for your sake. You struck him and turned him into a wolf. Now his own herd boys chase him away. His own hounds worry his flanks. Did you not love Ishalanu, the gardener of your father's palm grove? He brought you baskets filled with dates without end. Every day he loaded your table. Then you turned your eyes on him and said, Dearest Ishalanu, come here to me. Let us enjoy your manhood. Come forward and take me. I am yours. Ishalanu answered, What are you asking from me? My mother has baked, and I have eaten. Why should I come to such as you for food that is tainted and rotten? For when was a screen of rushes sufficient protection from frosts? But when you heard his answer, you struck him. He was changed to a blind mole deep in the earth, one whose desire is always beyond his reach. And if you and I should be lovers, should I not be served in the same fashion as all these others whom you once loved? When Ishtar heard this, she fell into a bitter rage. She went up to high heaven. Her tears poured down in front of her father, Anu, and her mother, Antum. She said, My father, Gilgamesh, has heaped insults on me. He has told over all my abominable behavior, my foul and hideous acts. Anu opened his mouth and said, Are you not a father of gods? Did you not quarrel with Gilgamesh, the king? So now he has related your abominable behavior, your foul and hideous acts. Ishtar opened her mouth and said again, My father, give me the bull of heaven to destroy Gilgamesh. Fill him with arrogance to his destruction. But if you refuse to give me the bull of heaven, I will break in the doors of hell and smash the bolts. There will be confusion of people, those above with those from the lower depths. I shall bring up the dead to eat food like the living, and the hosts of dead will outnumber the living. Anu said to great Ishtar, If I do what you desire, there will be 7 years of drought throughout Uruk, when corn will be seedless husks. Have you saved grain enough for the people and grass for the cattle? Ishtar replied, I have saved grain for the people, grass for the cattle. For 7 years of seedless husks, there is grain and grass enough. When Anu heard what Ishtar had said, he gave her the bull of heaven to lead by the halter down to Uruk. When they reached the gates of Uruk, the bull went to the river. With his first snort, cracks opened in the earth, and 100 young men fell to their deaths. With his second snort, cracks opened, and 200 fell to their deaths. With his third snort, cracks opened, and Enkidu doubled over but instantly recovered. He dodged aside and leapt on the bull, seizing it by the horns. The bull of heaven foamed in his face and brushed him with the thick of its tail. Enkidu cried to Gilgamesh, My friend, we boasted that we would leave enduring names behind us. Now thrust in your sword between the nape and the horns. So Gilgamesh followed the bull, seized the thick of its tail, thrust the sword between the nape and the horns, and slew the bull. When they had killed the bull of heaven, they cut out its heart and gave it to Shamash, and the brothers rested. But Ishtar rose up and mounted the great wall of Uruk. She sprang onto the tower and uttered a curse. Woe to Gilgamesh, for he has scorned me in killing the bull of heaven. When Enkidu heard these words, he tore out the bull's right thigh and tossed it in her face, saying, If I could lay my hands on you, it is this I should do to you, and lash the entrails to your side. Then Ishtar called together her people, the dancing and singing girls, the prostitutes of the temple, and the courtesans. Over the thigh of the bull of heaven, she set up lamentation. But Gilgamesh called the smiths and the armorers, all of them together. They admired the immensity of the horns. They were plated with lapis lazuli 2 fingers thick. Each weighed 30 pounds, and their capacity in oil was 6 measures. He gave the horns to his guardian god, Lugubanda, but carried them into the palace and hung them on the wall. Then they washed their hands in the Euphrates, embraced each other, and went away. They drove through the streets of Uruk, where the heroes were gathered to see them. Gilgamesh called to the singing girls, Who is most glorious of the heroes? Who is most eminent among men? Gilgamesh is the most glorious of heroes. Gilgamesh is most eminent among men. And now there was feasting, celebrations, and joy in the palace, till the heroes lay down saying, "Now we will rest for the night." When daylight came, Enkidu got up and cried to Gilgamesh, "O my brother, such a dream I had last night." Anu, Enlil, and heavenly Shamash took counsel together, and Anu said to Enlil, "Because they have killed the bull of heaven, and because they have killed Humbaba, who guarded the cedar mountain, one of the two must die." Then glorious Shamash answered the hero Enlil, "It was by your command they killed the bull of heaven and killed Humbaba, and must Enkidu die, although innocent?" Enlil flung around in rage at glorious Shamash. "You dare to say this, you who went about with them every day like one of themselves." So Enkidu lay stretched out before Gilgamesh. His tears ran down in streams, and he said to Gilgamesh, "O my brother, so dear as you are to me, brother, yet they will take me from you." "Again," he said, "I must sit down on the threshold of the dead, and never again will I see my dear brother with my eyes." While Enkidu lay alone in his sickness, he cursed the gate as though it was living flesh. "You there, wood of the gate, dull and insensible, witless. I searched for you over 20 leagues until I saw the towering cedar. There is no wood like you in our land. 72 cubits high and 24 wide. The pivot and the ferrule and the jambs are perfect. A master craftsman from Nippur has made you. But oh, if I had known the conclusion, if I had known that this was all the good that would come of it, I would have raised the axe and split you into little pieces and set up here a gate of wattle instead. Ah, if only some future king had brought you here, or some god had fashioned you. Let him obliterate my name and write his own, and let the curse fall on him instead of on Enkidu." With the first brightening of dawn, Enkidu raised his head and wept before the sun god. In the brilliance of the sunlight, his tears streamed down. "Sun god, I beseech you, about that trapper of nothing, because of whom I was to catch less than my comrade. Let him catch least, make his game scarce, make him feeble, taking the smaller of every share. Let his quarry escape from his nets." When he had cursed the trapper to his heart's content, he turned on the harlot. He was roused to curse her also. "As for you, woman, with a great curse I curse you. I will promise you a destiny to all eternity. My curse shall come on you soon and sudden. You shall be without a roof for your commerce, for you shall not keep house with other girls in the tavern, but do your business in places foul by the vomit of the drunkard. Your hire will be potter's earth. Your thievings will be flung into the hovel. You will sit at the crossroads in the dust of the potter's quarter. You will make your bed on the dunghill at night, and by day take your stand in the wall's shadow. Brambles and thorns will tear your feet. The drunk and the dry will strike your cheek, and your mouth will ache. Let you be stripped of your purple dyes, for I too, once in the wilderness with my wife, had all the treasure I wished." When Shamash heard the words of Enkidu, he called to him from heaven, "Enkidu, why are you cursing the woman, the mistress who taught you to eat bread fit for gods and drink wine of kings? She who put upon you a magnificent garment, did she not give you glorious Gilgamesh for your companion? Has not Gilgamesh, your own brother, made you rest on a royal bed and recline on a couch at his left hand? He has made the princes of the earth kiss your feet, and now all the people of Uruk lament and wail over you. When you are dead, he will let his hair grow long for your sake. He will wear a lion's pelt and wander through the desert." When Enkidu heard glorious Shamash, his angry heart grew quiet. He called back the curse and said, "Woman, I promise you another destiny. The mouth which cursed you shall bless you. Kings, princes, and nobles shall adore you. On your account, a man, though 12 miles off, will clap his hand to his thigh and his hair will twitch. For you, he will undo his belt and open his treasure, and you shall have your desired lapis lazuli, gold, and carnelian from the heap in the treasury. A ring for your hand and a robe shall be yours. The priest will lead you into the presence of the gods. On your account, a wife, a mother of 7, was forsaken. As Enkidu slept alone in his sickness, in bitterness of spirit, he poured out his heart to his friend. It was I who cut down the cedar, I who leveled the forest, I who slew Humbaba, and now see what has become of me. Listen, my friend, this is the dream I dreamed last night. The heavens roared, and earth rumbled back in answer. Between them stood I, before an awful being, the somber-faced man-bird. He had directed on me his purpose. His was a vampire face, his foot was a lion's foot, his hand was an eagle's talon. He fell on me, and his claws were in my hair. He held me fast, and I smothered. Then he transformed me so that my arms became wings covered with feathers. He turned his stare towards me and led me away to the palace of Urkula, the queen of darkness, to the house from which none who enters ever returns, down the road from which there is no coming back. There is the house whose people sit in darkness. Dust is their food and clay their meat. They are clothed like birds with wings for covering. They see no light. They sit in darkness. I entered the house of dust, and I saw the kings of the earth, their crowns put away forever, rulers and princes, all those who once wore kingly crowns and ruled the world in the days of old. They who had stood in the place of the gods like Anu and Enlil now stood like servants to fetch baked meats in the house of dust, to carry cooked meat and cold water from the water skin. In the house of dust which I entered were high priests and acolytes, priests of incantation and of ecstasy. There were servers of the temple, and there was Etana, that king of Kish, whom the eagle carried to heaven in the days of old. I saw also Samikin, the god of cattle, and there was Ereshkigal, the queen of the underworld, and Belet Sheri squatted in front of her, she who is recorder of the gods and keeps the book of death. She held a tablet from which she read. She raised her head, saw me, and spoke. Who has brought this one here? Then I awoke like a man drained of blood who wanders alone in a waste of rushes, like one whom the bailiff has seized and whose heart pounds with terror. Gilgamesh, having peeled off his clothes, listened to his words and wept quick tears. He opened his mouth and spoke to Enkidu. Who is there in strong-walled Uruk who has wisdom like this? Strange things have been spoken. Why does your heart speak so strangely? The dream was marvelous, but the terror was great. We must treasure the dream, whatever the terror, for the dream has shown that misery comes at last to the healthy man. The end of life is sorrow. Gilgamesh lamented. Now I will pray to the great gods, for my friend has had an ominous dream. This day, on which Enkidu dreamed, came to an end, and he lay stricken with sickness. One whole day he lay on his bed, and his suffering increased. He said to Gilgamesh, the friend for whom he had left the wilderness, once I ran for you, for the water of life, and now I have nothing. A second day he lay on his bed, and Gilgamesh watched over him, but the sickness increased. On the third day he lay on his bed and called out to Gilgamesh, rousing him. Now he was weak, and his eyes were blind with weeping. 10 days he lay, and his suffering increased. 11 and 12 days he lay on his bed of pain. Then he called to Gilgamesh, my friend, the great god has cursed me, and I must die in shame. I shall not die like a man fallen in battle. I feared to fall, but happy is the man who falls in battle. I must die in shame. And Gilgamesh wept over Enkidu. With the first light of dawn, he raised his voice and said to the counselors of Uruk, lament for Enkidu. Hear me, great ones of Uruk. I weep for Enkidu, my friend, bitterly moaning like a woman mourning. I weep for my brother. O Enkidu, my brother, you were the axe at my side, my hand strength, the sword in my belt, the shield before me, a glorious robe, my fairest ornament, An evil fate has robbed me, the wild ass and the gazelle, that were father and mother, all long-tailed creatures that nourished you, weep for you. All the wild things of the plain and pastures, the paths that you loved in the forest of cedars, night and day murmur. Let the great ones of strong-walled Uruk weep for you. Let the finger of blessing be stretched out in mourning. Enkidu, young brother, hark. There is an echo through all the country, like a mother mourning. Weep, all the paths where we walked together, and the beasts we hunted, the bear and hyena, tiger and panther, leopard and lion, the stag and the ibex, the bull and the doe. The river along whose banks we used to walk weeps for you. Ula of Elam and dear Euphrates, where once we drew water for the water skins, weep for you. The mountain we climbed where we slew the watchman weeps for you. The warriors of strong-walled Uruk, where the bull of heaven was killed, weep for you. All the people of Eridu weep for you in Kiddu. Those who brought grain for your eating mourn for you now. Those who rubbed oil on your back mourn for you now. Those who poured beer for your drinking mourn for you now. The harlot who anointed you with fragrant ointment laments for you now. The women of the palace who brought you a wife, a chosen ring of good advice, lament for you now. And the young men, your brothers, as though they were women, go long-haired in mourning. What is this sleep which holds you now? You are lost in the dark and cannot hear me. He touched his heart, but it did not beat, nor did he lift his eyes again. When Gilgamesh touched his heart, it did not beat. So Gilgamesh laid a veil, as one veils a bride, over his friend. He began to rage like a lioness robbed of her whelps. This way and that he paced round the bed. He tore out his hair and scattered it around. He dragged off his splendid robes and flung them down as though they were abominations. At the first light of dawn, Gilgamesh cried out, I made you rest on a royal bed. You reclined on a couch at my left hand. The princes of the earth kissed your feet. I will cause all the people of Europe to weep over you and raise the dirge of the dead. The joyful people will stoop with sorrow, and when you have gone to the earth, I will let my hair grow long for your sake. I will wander through the wilderness in the skin of a lion. The next day also, in the first light, Gilgamesh lamented. 7 days and 7 nights he wept for Enkidu until the worm fastened on him. Only then did he give him up to the earth, for the Anunnaki, the judges, had seized him. Then Gilgamesh issued a proclamation through the land. He summoned them all, the coppersmiths, the goldsmiths, the stone workers, and commanded them, make a statue of my friend. The statue was fashioned with a great weight of lapis lazuli for the breast and of gold for the body. A table of hardwood was set out, and on it a bowl of carnelian filled with honey, and a bowl of lapis lazuli filled with butter. These he exposed and offered to the sun, and weeping he went away. The search for everlasting life. Bitterly, Gilgamesh wept for his friend Enkidu. He wandered over the wilderness as a hunter and roamed the plains. In his bitterness, he cried, How can I rest? How can I be at peace? Despair is in my heart. What my brother is now, that shall I be when I am dead. Because I am afraid of death, I will go as best I can to find Utnapishtim, whom they call the Faraway, for he has entered the assembly of the gods. So Gilgamesh traveled over the wilderness. He wandered over the grasslands, a long journey, in search of Utnapishtim, whom the gods took after the deluge. They set him to live in the land of Dilmun, in the garden of the sun, and to him alone of men they gave everlasting life. At night, when he came to the mountain passes, Gilgamesh prayed. In these mountain passes long ago, I saw lions. I was afraid, and I lifted my eyes to the moon. I prayed, and my prayers went up to the gods. So now, O moon god Sin, protect me. When he had prayed, he lay down to sleep until he was woken from a dream. He saw the lions round him, glorying in life. Then he took his axe in his hand, drew his sword from his belt, and fell upon them like an arrow from the string. He struck, destroyed, and scattered them. At length, Gilgamesh came to Mashu, the great mountains about which he had heard many things, which guard the rising and the setting sun. Its twin peaks were as high as the wall of heaven, and its roots reached down to the underworld. At its gate, the scorpions stood guard, half man and half dragon. Their glory was terrifying. Their stare struck death into men, and their shimmering halos swept the mountains that guard the rising sun. When Gilgamesh saw them, he shielded his eyes for a moment only, then took courage and approached. When they saw him undismayed, the man-scorpion called to his mate, "This one who comes to us now is flesh of the gods." The mate of the man-scorpion answered, "Two-thirds is God, but one-third is man." Then the man-scorpion called to Gilgamesh, "Why have you come so great a journey? For what have you traveled so far, crossing the dangerous waters? Tell me the reason for your coming." Gilgamesh answered, "For Enkidu, I loved him dearly. Together we endured all kinds of hardships. On his account I have come, for the common lot of man has taken him. I have wept for him day and night. I would not give up his body for burial. I thought my friend would come back because of my weeping. Since he went, my life is nothing. That is why I have traveled here in search of Utnapishtim, my father. Men say he has entered the assembly of the gods and has found everlasting life. I have a desire to question him concerning the living and the dead." The man-scorpion opened his mouth and said, speaking to Gilgamesh, "No man born of woman has done what you have asked. No mortal man has gone into the mountain. The length of it is 12 leagues of darkness. In it there is no light, and the heart is oppressed with darkness. From the rising of the sun to the setting of the sun, there is no light." Gilgamesh said, "Although I should go in sorrow and pain, with sighing and weeping, still I must go. Open the gate of the mountain." The man-scorpion said, "Go, Gilgamesh. I permit you to pass through the mountain of Mashu and the high ranges. May your feet carry you safely home. The gate of the mountain is open." When Gilgamesh heard this, he did as the man-scorpion had said. He followed the sun's road to its rising through the mountain. When he had gone 1 league, the darkness became thick around him, and there was no light. He could see nothing ahead or behind him. After 2 leagues, the darkness was thick, and there was no light. After 3 leagues, it was the same. After 4, 5, 6, and 7 leagues, the darkness was impenetrable. After 8 leagues, Gilgamesh gave a great cry, for he could see nothing ahead or behind him. After 10 leagues, the end was near. At 11 leagues, the dawn light appeared. At the end of 12 leagues, the sun streamed out. There was the garden of the gods. All around him stood bushes bearing gems. Seeing it, he went down at once, for there was fruit of carnelian with the vine hanging from it, beautiful to look at. Lapis lazuli leaves hung thick with fruit, sweet to see. Instead of thorns and thistles, there was hematite and rare stones, agate and pearls from out of the sea. While Gilgamesh walked in the garden by the edge of the sea, Shamash saw him. He saw that Gilgamesh was dressed in the skins of animals and ate their flesh. He was distressed and spoke, saying, "No mortal man has gone this way before, nor will, as long as the winds drive over the sea." To Gilgamesh, he said, "You will never find the life for which you are searching." Gilgamesh answered glorious Shamash, "Now that I have toiled and strayed so far over the wilderness, am I to sleep and let the earth cover my head forever? Let my eyes see the sun until they are dazzled with looking. Although I am no better than a dead man, still let me see the light of the sun." Beside the sea lies Sigiri, the woman of the vine, the maker of wine. She sits in the garden at the edge of the sea with her golden bowl and vats, gifts from the gods. Veiled, she observes Gilgamesh approaching, his body strong as a god's, but his heart heavy with despair, his face weary like one who has journeyed far. Scanning the distance, she thought, surely this is a felon. Where is he going now? She barred her gate, securing it with a crossbar and bolt. Hearing the bolt slide, Gilgamesh raised his head, placed his foot against the gate, and called out, young woman, maker of wine, why do you bolt your door? What did you see that made you bar your gate? I will break down your door and shatter your gate. I am Gilgamesh, who seized and killed the bull of heaven, who killed the watchman of the cedar forest, overthrew Humbaba, and slew the lions in the mountain passes. Sijiri replied, if you are indeed Gilgamesh, the one who accomplished these deeds, why are your cheeks hollow and your face drawn? Why is despair in your heart and your face like one who has traveled far? Why is your face burned by heat and cold? Why do you wander the pastures seeking the wind? Gilgamesh answered, why should my cheeks not be hollow and my face drawn? Despair is in my heart, and my face reflects my suffering. My friend, my younger brother, the one who hunted the wild ass and the panther beside me, who helped me seize and kill the bull of heaven, who stood with me against Humbaba, my beloved friend Enkidu. He has succumbed to the fate of all mortals. I wept for him 7 days and 7 nights until the worm took hold of him. Because of him, I fear death and wander the wilderness, unable to find rest. But now that I have seen you, do not let me see the face of death, which I dread. Sijiri responded, Gilgamesh, where are you hurrying to? The life you seek, you will never find. When the gods created man, they decreed death for him, but kept life eternal for themselves. You, Gilgamesh, should fill your belly with good things. Day and night, dance and be merry, feast and rejoice. Let your clothes be fresh, bathe in water, cherish the child who holds your hand, and delight in your wife's embrace. These are the measures of a man's life. Gilgamesh replied, how can I rest or be silent when Enkidu, whom I love, has turned to dust? I too shall die and lie in the earth forever. Young woman, you dwell by the sea. Tell me, how can I find Utnapishtim, the son of Ubaratutu? What path must I follow to reach him? If crossing the ocean is possible, I will do so. If not, I will wander farther into the wilderness. Sijiri said, Gilgamesh, there is no crossing the ocean. Since the days of old, no mortal has crossed that sea. Only the sun in his glory journeys across it. The waters of death are deep, and the passage is perilous. Down in the woods, you will find Urshanabi, the ferryman of Utnapishtim. He is fashioning a serpent prow for his boat. Look for him and seek his guidance. If he can take you across, perhaps you will succeed. If not, you must turn back. Seized by anger, Gilgamesh took his axe and dagger and destroyed the holy things of stone that belonged to Urshanabi. Urshanabi, hearing the commotion, saw the destruction and cried out, who are you, who destroys the sacred stones? I am Urshanabi, the ferryman of Utnapishtim. Gilgamesh replied, I am Gilgamesh of Uruk, son of Ninsun. Urshanabi observed, why are your cheeks hollow and your face drawn? Why do you wander seeking the wind? Gilgamesh confessed, my friend Enkidu is dead. Because of him, I fear death and seek Utnapishtim to learn the secret of life eternal. Urshanabi replied, your anger has destroyed the means to cross the waters of death. Now, go to the forest, cut 120 poles, each 60 cubits long, and prepare them with bitumen and ferrules. Gilgamesh obeyed. He cut the poles, prepared them, and returned. Together, they launched the boat and crossed the waters. After many days, they reached Utnapishtim, the faraway, to whom the gods had granted eternal life. The meeting with Utnapishtim. Utnapishtim watched from a distance, puzzled to see the boat arriving without its usual equipment. He saw Gilgamesh dressed in animal skins and said, "Who are you, dressed like this, with the face of one who has traveled far? What brings you to cross these perilous waters?" Gilgamesh replied, "I am Gilgamesh, king of Uruk. I seek you to learn the secret of everlasting life. My friend Enkidu's death has filled me with despair, and I fear my own mortality." Utnapishtim responded, "There is no permanence. Life and death are determined by the gods. No man can escape his fate. Why do you seek what cannot be found?" Gilgamesh persisted, "Tell me, Utnapishtim, how you came to possess eternal life." Utnapishtim said, "I will reveal to you a secret of the gods. The story of the flood. You know the city Shirpak, which stands on the banks of the Euphrates? That city grew old, and so did the gods within it. Among them were Anu, lord of the firmament, and their father, warrior, and Lil, their counselor, Ninurta, the helper, Inugi, watcher over canals, and E. In those days, the world teemed with people, multiplying and clamoring like wild bulls. The great god was aroused by the uproar. Enlil heard the clamor and said to the gods in council, "The uproar of mankind is intolerable, and sleep is no longer possible because of this Babel." So the gods agreed to exterminate mankind. Enlil made the decree, but E, bound by his oath, warned me in a dream. He whispered their words to my house of reeds. "Reed house, reed house. Wall, O wall, hearken, reed house, wall, reflect. O man of Shurpak, son of Yubara Tudu, tear down your house and build a boat. Abandon your possessions and seek life. Despise worldly goods and save your soul alive. Tear down your house, I say, and build a boat. These are the measurements of the bark as you shall build her. Let her beam equal her length. Let her deck be roofed like the vault that covers the abyss. Then take into the boat the seed of all living creatures." When I understood, I said to my Lord, "Behold, what you have commanded, I will honor and perform. But how shall I answer the people of the city, the elders?" He opened his mouth and said to me, his servant, "Tell them this. I have learned that Enlil is wrathful against me. I dare no longer walk in his land nor live in his city. I will go down to the gulf to dwell with E, my Lord. But upon you he will rain down abundance, rare fish, shy wildfowl, and a rich harvest. In the evening, the rider of the storm will bring you wheat in torrents." At the first light of dawn, my household gathered around me. The children brought pitch, and the men brought whatever was necessary. On the fifth day, I laid the keel and the ribs and fastened the planking. The ground space was 1 acre, and each side of the deck measured 120 cubits, making a square. I built 6 decks below, 7 in all, dividing them into 9 sections with bulkheads. I drove in wedges where needed, prepared the punt poles, and laid in supplies. The carriers brought oil in baskets, and I poured pitch into the furnace along with asphalt and oil. More oil was consumed in caulking, and the master of the boat stored even more. I slaughtered bullocks for the people and sheep daily. I gave the shipwrights wine as though it were river water, raw wine, red wine, and oil. There was feasting as at the New Year's festival, and I anointed my head with oil. On the 7th day, the boat was complete. Launching was difficult. Ballast shifted above and below until 2/3 of the boat was submerged. I loaded all my gold, living creatures, family, kin, wild and tame beasts, and craftsmen aboard. When the time Shamash had ordained arrived, the evening rider of the storm brought down the destroying rain. I boarded the boat and battened her down. Everything was completed, the battening and caulking. I handed the tiller to Puser Amory, the steersman, entrusting him with the navigation and care of the boat. At the first light of dawn, a black cloud rose from the horizon, thundering where Adad, lord of the storm, rode. Shulet and Hanish, heralds of the storm, advanced over hills and plains. The gods of the abyss rose up. Nergal tore out the dams of the nether waters, and Ninurta, the warlord, threw down the dikes. The seven judges of hell, the Anunnaki, raised their torches, lighting the land with livid flame. A stupor of despair rose to heaven when the storm god turned daylight to darkness, smashing the land like a cup. One whole day, the tempest raged, pouring over the people like tides of battle. A man could not see his brother. The people could not be seen from heaven. Even the gods were terrified of the flood and fled to the highest heaven, crouching like dogs against the walls. Ishtar, the sweet-voiced queen of heaven, cried out like a woman in travail. Alas, the days of old are dust because I commanded this evil. Why did I decree destruction in the council of all the gods? These are my people, and now, like fish, they fill the ocean. The great gods of heaven and hell wept and covered their mouths. For 6 days and 6 nights, the winds blew, and the flood overwhelmed the world. When the seventh day dawned, the storm subsided, and the sea grew calm. I looked out and saw silence. All mankind had turned to clay. The surface of the sea stretched flat as a rooftop. I opened a hatch, and light fell on my face. I bowed low, sat down, and wept. Tears streamed down my face, for everywhere water covered the earth. I searched for land in vain, but 14 leagues away, a mountain appeared. The boat grounded on Mount Nishir and held fast for 7 days. On the seventh day, I released a dove, but it found no resting place and returned. Then I released a swallow, but it too returned. Finally, I released a raven, which saw that the waters had receded. It ate, flew around, and did not return. Then I opened everything to the four winds and made a sacrifice. I set 7 cauldrons on their stands and heaped them with wood, cane, cedar, and myrtle. When the gods smelled the sweet savor, they gathered like flies over the sacrifice. Ishtar came and lifted her necklace of lapis lazuli, saying, O gods, by the jewels of my neck, I shall remember these days and never forget. Let all the gods gather around the offering except Enlil. He shall not approach, for he caused the flood and destroyed my people. When Enlil arrived and saw the boat, he was filled with wrath. Has any mortal escaped? None was to survive the destruction. Ninurta replied, Who among the gods could devise such a plan without E's wisdom? He spoke to Enlil, hero Enlil. How senselessly you brought the flood. Lay upon the sinner his sin. Lay upon the transgressor his transgression. Punish him a little when he breaks loose. Do not drive him too hard, or he perishes. Would that a lion had ravaged mankind, rather than the flood. Would that a wolf had ravaged mankind, rather than the flood. Would that famine had wasted the world, rather than the flood. Would that pestilence had wasted mankind, rather than the flood. It was not I that revealed the secret of the gods. The wise man learned it in a dream. Now take your counsel on what shall be done with him. Then Enlil went up into the boat. He took me by the hand and my wife, and made us enter the boat and kneel down on either side, he standing between us. He touched our foreheads to bless us, saying, In times past, Utnapishtim was a mortal man. Henceforth, he and his wife shall live in the distance at the mouth of the rivers. Thus it was that the gods took me and placed me here to live in the distance at the mouth of the rivers. The return. Utnapishtim said, As for you, Gilgamesh, who will assemble the gods for your sake, so that you may find the life for which you are searching. But if you wish, come and put yourself to the test. Only prevail against sleep for 6 days and 7 nights. But while Gilgamesh sat there, resting on his haunches, a mist of sleep, soft as wool teased from fleece, drifted over him. Utnapishtim said to his wife, Look at him now, the strong man who would have everlasting life, already the mist of sleep drift over him. His wife replied, Touch the man to wake him, so that he may return to his own land in peace, going back through the gate by which he came. Utnapishtim said to his wife, "All men are deceivers. Even you, he will attempt to deceive. Therefore, bake loaves of bread one for each day and place them beside his head. Mark the wall to count the days he has slept." So she baked loaves of bread, each day one loaf, and put it beside his head. She marked on the wall the days that he slept. There came a day when the first loaf was hard, the second loaf was like leather, the third was soggy, the crust of the fourth had mold, the fifth was mildewed, the sixth was fresh, and the seventh was still on the embers. Then Utnapishtim touched him, and he woke. Gilgamesh said to Utnapishtim the faraway, "I hardly slept when you touched and roused me." But Utnapishtim said, "Count these loaves and learn how many days you slept. Your first is hard, your second like leather, your third is soggy, the crust of your fourth has mold, your fifth is mildewed, your sixth is fresh, and your seventh was still over the glowing embers when I touched and woke you." Gilgamesh said, "What shall I do, O Utnapishtim? Where shall I go? Already the thief in the night has hold of my limbs. Death inhabits my room. Wherever my foot rests, there I find death." Then Utnapishtim spoke to Urshanabi, the ferryman. "Woe to you, Urshanabi! Now and forevermore you have become hateful to this harbor. It is not for you, nor for you are the crossings of this sea. Go now, banished from the shore. But this man before whom you walked, bringing him here, whose body is covered with foulness, and whose grace of limb is spoiled by wild skins, take him to the washing place. There he shall wash his long hair clean as snow in the water. He shall throw off his skins, and let the sea carry them away. The beauty of his body shall be shown. The fillet on his forehead shall be renewed, and he shall be given clothes to cover his nakedness. Until he reaches his own city and his journey is accomplished, these clothes will show no sign of age. They will wear like a new garment." So Urshanabi took Gilgamesh and led him to the washing place. He washed his long hair as clean as snow in the water. He threw off his skins, which the sea carried away, and the beauty of his body was shown. He renewed the fillet on his forehead and gave him clothes to cover his nakedness, clothes that would show no sign of age and would wear like a new garment until he reached his own city and completed his journey. Then Gilgamesh and Urshanabi launched the boat onto the water and boarded it. They made ready to sail away, but the wife of Utnapishtim the faraway said to him, "Gilgamesh came here wearied out. He is worn out. What will you give him to carry him back to his own country?" Utnapishtim spoke, and Gilgamesh took a pole to bring the boat to the bank. Utnapishtim said, "Gilgamesh, you came here a man wearied out. You have worn yourself out. What shall I give you to carry you back to your own country? I shall reveal a secret thing. It is a mystery of the gods that I am telling you. There is a plant that grows under the water. It has a prickle like a thorn, like a rose. It will wound your hands, but if you succeed in taking it, then your hands will hold that which restores lost youth to a man." When Gilgamesh heard this, he opened the sluices so that a sweet water current might carry him to the deepest channel. He tied heavy stones to his feet, and they dragged him down to the waterbed. There he saw the plant growing. Although it pricked him, he took it in his hands. Then he cut the heavy stones from his feet, and the sea carried him and threw him onto the shore. Gilgamesh said to Urshanabi, the ferryman, "Come here and see this marvelous plant. By its virtue, a man may win back all his former strength. I will take it to Uruk of the strong walls. There I will give it to the old men to eat. Its name shall be the old men are young again. At last I shall eat it myself and have back all my lost youth." So Gilgamesh returned by the gate through which he had come. Gilgamesh and Urshanabi went together. They traveled 20 leagues and then broke their fast. After 30 leagues, they stopped for the night. Gilgamesh saw a well of cool water, and he went down to bathe. But deep in the pool, A serpent sensed the sweetness of the flower. It rose out of the water and snatched it away. Immediately, it sloughed its skin and returned to the well. Then Gilgamesh sat down and wept. Tears ran down his face, and he took the hand of Urshanabi. O Urshanabi, was it for this that I toiled with my hands? Is it for this I have wrung out my heart's blood? For myself, I have gained nothing. Not I, but the beast of the earth has joy of it now. Already the stream has carried it 20 leagues back to the channels where I found it. I found a sign, and now I have lost it. Let us leave the boat on the bank and go. After 20 leagues, they broke their fast. After 30 leagues, they stopped for the night. In 3 days, they had walked as much as a journey of a month in 15 days. When the journey was accomplished, they arrived at Uruk, the strong walled city. Gilgamesh spoke to Urshanabi, the ferryman. Urshanabi, climb up onto the wall of Uruk. Inspect its foundation terrace. Examine well the brickwork. See if it is not of burnt bricks. Did not the 7 wise men lay these foundations? 1/3 of the whole is city, 1/3 is garden, and 1/3 is field, with the precinct of the goddess Ishtar. These parts and the precinct are all Uruk. This too was the work of Gilgamesh, the king, who knew the countries of the world. He was wise. He saw mysteries and knew secret things. He brought us a tale of the days before the flood. He went on a long journey, was weary and worn out with labor, and returned to engrave on a stone the whole story, the death of Gilgamesh. The destiny was fulfilled which the father of the gods, Enlil of the mountain, had decreed for Gilgamesh. In nether earth, the darkness will show him a light. Of mankind, all that are known, none will leave a monument for generations to come to compare with his. The heroes, the wise men, like the new moon, have their waxing and waning. Men will say, who has ever ruled with might and with power like him? As in the dark month, the month of shadows, so without him there is no light. O Gilgamesh, this was the meaning of your dream. You were given the kingship. Such was your destiny. Everlasting life was not your destiny. Because of this, do not be sad at heart. Do not be grieved or oppressed. He has given you power to bind and to loose, to be the darkness and the light of mankind. He has given unexampled supremacy over the people, victory in battle from which no fugitive returns, in forays and assaults from which there is no going back. But do not abuse this power. Deal justly with your servants in the palace. Deal justly before the face of the sun. The lament for Gilgamesh. The king has laid himself down and will not rise again. The Lord of Kholeb will not rise again. He overcame evil. He will not come again. Though he was strong of arm, he will not rise again. He had wisdom and a comely face. He will not come again. He is gone into the mountain. He will not come again. On the bed of fate he lies. He will not rise again. From the couch of many colors, he will not come again. The people of the city, great and small, are not silent. They lift up the lament. All men of flesh and blood lift up the lament. Fate has spoken. Like a hooked fish, he lies stretched on the bed, like a gazelle caught in a noose. Inhuman Namtar is heavy upon him, Namtar, who has neither hand nor foot, who drinks no water and eats no meat. For Gilgamesh, son of Ninsun, they weighed out their offerings. His dear wife, his son, his concubine, his musicians, his jester, and all his household, his servants, his stewards, all who lived in the palace weighed out their offerings for Gilgamesh, the son of Ninsun, the heart of Uruk. They weighed out their offerings to Ereshkigal, the queen of death, and to all the gods of the dead. To Namtar, who is fate, they weighed out the offering. Bread for Neti, the keeper of the gate. Bread for Ningazida, the god of the serpent, the lord of the tree of life. For Dumuzi also, the young shepherd. For Enki and Ninki. For Indukuga and Ninjakuga. For Enmol and Nimno, all the ancestral gods, forebears of Enlil. a feast for Shulpi, the god of feasting, for Samikin, god of the herds, for the mother Ninursag and the gods of creation in the place of creation. For the host of heaven, priest and priestess weighed out the offering of the dead. Gilgamesh, the son of Ninsun, lies in the tomb. At the place of offerings, he weighed the bread offering. At the place of libation, he poured out the wine. In those days, the Lord Gilgamesh departed the son of Ninsun, the king, peerless, without an equal among men, who did not neglect Enlil, his master. O Gilgamesh, Lord of Kulab, great is thy praise. Thank you for listening and for your support. Peace, blessings, and much love to you all.